This is Tommy for the Hidden Truths channel. How's everybody doing this evening? Tonight I'm going to do my live broadcast on the Derek Chauvin pardon, possibly, and the coming on civil unrest that's going to be coming, or the racial war, or whatever. But it really sounds like things could get heated up again this summer. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. I got to wait for a couple minutes. So if you're in this, advance about 2.5 minutes and we'll start getting into the subject. But I got to wait for some people to show up. YouTube's got to send notifications out and stuff. Anyway, got back to the farm today. It was raining up north in northern Nebraska where I was fencing. So I got about 4 or 5 days off, but we need rain up there in those pastures, but I need some rain down here too in this part of Nebraska. But so I got a few days off. I'm going to enjoy it. That's one thing nice about up there in the middle of nowhere. Get a lot of time to think. A lot of time to clear your head and stuff. And, I didn't get to put much content out on my channel because I was so busy, but I can make up for it over the next 5 days. Anyway, I'm sure YouTube's just going to help my channel grow as much as they can anyway, like they always do. Oh my goodness, it's from all this wind and all this dust and sand I've been dealing with for the last couple weeks. The wind hasn't stopped blowing here for months. It's hard to get the moisture. Anyway, before I get into the subject, I would like, if you want to support the channel, hit the like and subscribe. Like button, subscribe, share the content. Any little help against the YouTube algorithm, all us conservative channels need it. Because no conservative channels, like when I started watching big time back in 2020, none of these channels get the views and on their live streams, the number of people there that they used to get. So, YouTube's really clamping down. And I really wish Trump would do something to these social media platforms that are censoring people, in other words, or shadow banning. By the way, like I say, if you could hit the like, share, and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Help the channel grow. Anyway, let's get into the subject. The Derek Chauvin pardon. Is it going to happen? I think so. Because the powers that be on both sides want this war to kick off. But do I believe that he was guilty of murder? No. Do I believe he was an asshole cop? Absolutely. Okay. And this is what we get when, all you Democrats didn't have a problem voting for Bill Clinton when he, remember, wanted to put 100,000 more cops on the street to make the country safe. And he did it. So now we live in a police state, and this is what we get to deal with. But was he guilty of murder that day? I don't believe so. But I believe he was definitely a cop I wouldn't have wanted to deal with because I would have had an attitude with him. And that's the thing is, you get an attitude with these cops, especially these big city cops, all of a sudden you have 5 or 6, it's never a fair fight. But, George Floyd is trying to, just think if you were to do this, trying to pass funny money, the cops get called on him, you're full of fentanyl, and then you're resisting arrest. I mean, they had him in the cop car and he got out of the cop car. I still don't understand that. But you're resisting arrest. Okay? You're in the big city. He should have been smart enough to know what was going to happen to him, but he would have died of an overdose anyway. So I do believe the pardon is going to happen because he didn't go to prison for being an asshole cop. He went to prison for murder. And I don't believe he murdered him. I believe George Floyd murdered himself. That's what happens when you OD, okay? You murder yourself. Basically committed suicide. If he would have stayed at home and sat in his chair, they would have found him dead in his chair. Okay? But remember, the powers that be on both sides want this conflict between Americans to start. That's why they're creating all the division. And I like to repeat that. Charles Manson is the one that wanted a race war, remember? So now we got the powers that be that want this race war. By the way, they're going to get it. Minneapolis is going to burn again. I lived in Minnesota during the George Floyd riots, and I owned a house at the time. And I remember asking my who I had my house insurance through. I said, "What happens if my house gets burned down through because of a riot or something? Am I covered?" And he just said, "Don't worry." It didn't sound like I was covered, but I mean, I should have been. But silly things you have to worry about. But now they're just anything to get all excited about. All this race stuff, starting with Carmela Anthony and the Austin Metcalf stabbing, and then you had the stabbing in the ambulance in Kansas City where the black woman stabbed the EMT, and just all this racial stuff. It's going too far. I mean, eventually the people that are pushing for this are going to get what they want. Fighting over, I mean, we're going to have a war over what color you are. Now, people will say that's what the Civil War was fought about. No, it wasn't. The Civil War was fought about states' rights. Some states felt that they had the right to leave a union that they voluntarily, that they decided to belong to. Back then, if you were Virginia, that was your country. That was a state, but you still considered it your own country and stuff like that. It wasn't fought over slavery. History, let's just say the history books from the late 1800s are different than the history books these days. Just like, AI is trying to rewrite history, or they're getting input at the way history was wrong. Anyway, I'm having arguments with the AI algorithm on some of the history questions. Anyway, they're going to start this race war. You know what I mean? Fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, see, I ain't got to worry about that out here because our sheriff's department and the people would never put up with the stuff. It would end before it even tried to get started. And, it would be stupid to come out here to a county that has less than 2,000 people in it to try to sit there and create problems because we're all pretty much on the same page. So, they pardon him. He needs to be pardoned. He should never went to prison for that. Maybe excessive force, whatever. But, I haven't dealt with that. I mean, if I were to ever get stopped by a cop like that and he told me that, I'll go in the back of your cop car. I don't need to be pushed around. But the whole lies about the first trial where the truth wasn't allowed to come out and these people were allowed to believe their lies, just like in the Austin Metcalf thing where Carmelo Anthony had a cleat sharpener. There's no such thing as a cleat sharpener. If you ever ran track and you replace your spikes and your cleats, you screw them out and you screw them in. I mean, I ran track when they used to still have, dirt tracks basically. And you'd have, what were they? The longest one. I think they were 3/8 spikes. They were pretty long. Then you had the shorter ones when you had the regular tracks. But all these lies and stuff. And, when that trial comes up and all these people believe, well, they're just bringing out fake evidence and stuff. Anyway, we are in for one hell of a crap show this summer. The summer of love's going to come back with a vengeance. Hey, how's it going, Napoleon Bridges? Yeah, talking about Derek Chauvin. Anyway, appreciate you if you subscribe and share and like. Need to get the word out. I don't want to live in hell. That's what everybody wants, to separate these people so we're all fighting each other and burning each other's places down. And so we all can live in hell. I want to start getting along. We need to start spreading the message of getting along instead of fighting with each other. Okay, well, there's no reason why we should hate your neighbor just because a politician says so. I mean, they're supposed to, politicians there to unite, right? Which one unites? After the election, which one, Tim Walz? I mean, Kamala Harris hasn't said nothing since the election, but well, yeah, she did a little bit, but where's the unity that they're trying to create? It's all division. They're different than me. Hate them. They're different color than you. Hate them. Look at where it leads. We have a lot of bad stuff coming down this year. If you live in a big city, you best get prepared. If you live in like Portland and Seattle, and it doesn't even matter you're a Trump supporter. If you're on the other side that your neighbor's at, then you got to worry about your neighbor when this all gets radicalized and crazy and people actually start, well, people are already dying. I just don't understand why people can't get along. I don't know where other people think they need to hate somebody because of their color. I don't know where they think people go out of their way to sit there and mess with people just because of their color. That's not the way normal people act. And I'm sick of where this, maybe 5% or 1% do it. So everybody's doing it. So we all got to be punished. That's why a lot of laws are made, right? Because some jerk off does something stupid, breaks a law, or does something really retarded. So they make a law so everybody's affected. Anyway, if the riots start, I think it's going to, because they're going to keep pushing it. Since they didn't get World War III in chaos that way, and I guess they're going to go for this civil, racial, constitutional war, whatever it's going to be called. But the patriots are getting upset with the government because they're not doing anything that we voted them in for. And the other side's getting upset because they feel they're losing their democracy. If that's another thing. Politicians would stop saying the word democracy. We are a constitutional republic. I would love for that to come out of a politician's mouth. Constitutional republic. We're a republic. Nope, democracy. Democracy. Yeah, we got a Republican democracy and a Democrat democracy. And pretty soon they're going to clash. And then I'll be the one that's sitting watching them destroy each other because I ain't going to have nothing to do with it. Anyway, well, I'm going to get off here. YouTube isn't allowing anybody to stay, so that's fine. Like I say, these social media platforms and stuff, when the truth comes and hits them in the face, what are they going to do? When Jeff Bezos has people tearing down his headquarters and stuff and hunting him down, what's he going to do? Think, oh man, I could have been a little different and a little bit more, whatever. All I know is if you're that thin-skinned and you got to censor people and you own a social media platform and you're a billionaire, start up a different business and stop being such a pussy. Anyway. That's all I got this evening. Like I say, if you see this, which I doubt, like, share, subscribe. Let's get this channel rolling. So anyway, this is Tom. I'm out.